and welcome to the Wrap Up Live. This is the official Raptors Republic live post-game show where you recap, and podcast, I should say, where we recap, dissect, and have some fun talking about the latest Raptors game you just watched. I'm your host, Sahal Abdi. I'm here with our beloved co-host, Aiden Moss. And tonight, another win in the books for the Raptors.
Yay.
The Raptors won and defeated the San Antonio Spurs 112-98, bringing the Raptors record to 26 wins, 30 losses. That's just 4 games below 500. I feel like the entire season, Aiden, I've been saying the Raptors were 6 games below 500. They are now 4 games below 500 and slowly creeping up into the Eastern Conference playoff picture. I guess whether fans like to hear that or not. And last but not least, if you love the Toronto Raptors, do us hardworking individuals at Raptors Republic a favor and join the live comment section if you are here watching us live, and subscribe to both our YouTube channel and our podcast channel, The Rapcast. Aiden,
what's up?
Not the most entertaining game. It is the San Antonio Spurs, the 14-win, 40-loss San Antonio Spurs at the bottom barrel of the Western Conference. But it is a game that the Raptors won, and they won pretty handily. First quarter looked great. Second quarter, it looked like the Spurs were kind of inching back. It went from a 10-point game at the end of the first quarter to the Spurs making it a 3-point game at halftime. And at that point, it seemed like the momentum was with the San Antonio Spurs. And then the second half, it seemed like there were a couple, maybe I should say a little more than a couple possessions that the Raptors maybe feel like they should have had back. Felt like at times Fred VanVleet, who had a very good first half, was starting to force the issue a little bit in the second half. He looked visibly frustrated. Chris Boucher had a fantastic game. We will get into him in a bit. Pascal Siakam as well. Aiden, who do you want to get into first? Anything you want to mention to kind of start us off?
Yeah, I have to admit, I had trouble watching this game. I was basically just scrolling Twitter over and over again. It's just like the anticipation of everything that's happening is absorbing my brain. And maybe we'll talk about the Lakers trade afterwards. I don't know. But one thing I want to point out that I find concerning and that we can think about in respect to what happens tomorrow is Scottie Barnes' first couple of possessions where he really had the ball and the ability to operate goes at Jakob Poeltl, I think twice in a row, if not like nearly consecutive possessions, easy buckets, like as easy as you can get. Isolation, empty in the corner, and he just dribbles into the paint, pivot, layup, boom, done. And then we come into the fourth quarter, and the game's more or less in hand, but it's only 12, and I really think if we had been playing a better team, this would have been a dogfight again, because we played pretty poorly. Most everybody but Pascal and Boucher played quite poorly tonight. Sky doesn't touch the ball at all, and maybe I'm biased because I had him on the over on assists, so I'm pissed about that. But it enabled me to watch Scottie on every single possession, and he doesn't touch the ball. And when he gives up the ball, it doesn't come back to him. And you see this over and over again, and it's just like, this is just bad business, like all around. It doesn't lead to winning. It doesn't lead to developing your players. It doesn't lead to building team chemistry. And when a guy shoots 5 for 16, 1 for 7 from 3, being Freddie VanVleet, and he's forcing the issue still, like at least Pascal's cooking. But Freddie is just like, these are the games that kill me with Freddie and madden me. And you saw at the very end, Boucher went on a fast break, didn't give it up. These guys suck at passing, man. These guys suck in the fast break period. Sorry, I'm on a rant now, but bear with me. And you see Scottie just hold his hands out, literally like this, just standing there, freeze frame, because he's wide open for a layup and doesn't get it. And it happened a lot in the fourth quarter where he's just waiting for the ball. He's waiting for that kick, and it never comes. So that's really what I wanted to highlight, and that's really what pissed me off.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because there were tons, I think, of possessions where you're watching the Raptors and there's a clear observation I think every Raptors fan can make. And I know people are going to go, oh, you guys, we just won. Like, why are you guys starting off with the negativity? Well, if you've watched this show long enough, we usually end with the positivity, which is always a good thing. And the Raptors' schedule, we will get into that as well later, does look a bit lighter for the next 3 or 4 games, which is great to see as well. So this is a team that's creeping up into that playoff picture. They are now sitting at 26 wins, 30 losses, right? They are now 16-12 at home. That's 4 games above 500. My concern with I think your observation, Aiden, I agree with you fully. I think my thing with Scotty Barnes is that I don't know if it's a respect thing with him, where Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., and some of these guys look at each other and go, they have this kind of made up hierarchy in their minds of, okay, Pascal gets the ball, and if he's not getting the ball, then Fred's going to get the ball. If Fred doesn't get the ball, then Gary's going to get the ball. And Scotty's always that guy that's just in that same maybe like made up tier in the brains of these Raptors, where he's in that precious tier where it's like, yeah, you can get the ball here and there, but I mean, for the most part, yeah, I mean, you're a 20-year-old, so which sucks because you watch Scotty Barnes sometimes and you wish for him to get these developmental reps, right? And not just in shot attempts. I think just in overall usage, just getting his hands on the ball. Like you said, there's a lot of possessions where he kind of just passes it out, right? It gets to Fred or it gets to Gary, and they may pass between each other, or it may touch every Raptors' hands, but it just rarely comes back to Scotty. Which is why sometimes I kind of have to tell myself, okay, you can't really get angry with Scotty if he wants to do some of these elbow isolations where he just does that really quick dribble in between his legs and he wants to create something, he wants to do something. I kind of understand it now. And I think it's a very toxic way, Aiden, of playing basketball.
Exactly. It engenders more,
right?
It engenders more of the toxicity unless you're the bigger man or the better man, for sure.
I think what helped the Raptors a lot tonight was the fact that there's one guy on this box score that stands out, and that's Pascal Siakam. He shot an incredibly high, I should say, efficiency in this game, 15 for 21 from the field. He was perfect from beyond the arc. Almost a triple-double in this game. He had 37 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. Aiden, just before we get into some of the other guys, diagnosing this Pascal Siakam game, do you think it was just your typical superstar going up against one of the league's worst teams? Do you think we can just bog it down to that, or do you really? And again, that's not me taking credit away from Pascal Siakam. NBA teams are NBA teams, but 2 questions. This is a 2-parter for you, Aiden. Number 1, do you think that this was more of the Spurs kind of doing, or do you think the Raptors were like, okay, we're going up against the Spurs, and Nick Nurse was like, we're going to get this guy some touches. This is going to be that game for Pascal where he's had a little bit of a tough month. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about Fred. Fred's had a pretty good month, right? Gary, I want to say maybe save for this week. His last month has been incredible. He's been shooting the ball really well. Scotty's looked fantastic in his role for maybe the last 2 months. Precious Achiuwa's looked great since he's been back, right? And then we'll get into Chris Boucher a bit later. But what did you think about Pascal Siakam's game, and what it means for his short-term future, just getting back on track for the Raptors?
Yeah, I think it's multiple things. One of which is that the Spurs just have nobody to really contend with him. I think Sochan,
I believe it is, yeah.
would have been a good matchup for him, like a long, laterally quick guy that can kind of get up and into Pascal, which he hates. But the Spurs had nobody to really contend with him. And on top of that, defensively, they weren't really scheming to take him out of the game like other teams have done. But I also think they had 3 days off. They're back home. Like, I think Pascal had time to just kind of rest and rinse out some of that fatigue. What did he play tonight? 39 minutes still. Jesus Christ. I've said that, like, I think it was in the third quarter. I'm like, we're winning this game by 18, and the starters are still, like, Freddie, Pascal, and I don't know who the third starter was still in there. It's like, God. But, yeah, so I think that was a big part of it. He had a couple of lucky shots fall in, too. So, maybe that's just part of it, is getting or seeing the ball drop in early. I think it's a combination of all those things. But probably the biggest indicator is that the Spurs are just really bad.
Yeah, and I hate sort of bringing that up sometimes because a lot of people will go, well, I mean, you got to give him credit. Like, this is a 37-point, 10 rebound, 7 assist performance on that type of efficiency is incredible. It doesn't matter who you go up against. And they're right. But also, I think, like I said, this is the type of game that you need Pascal Siakam to get back on track, and I think he did. If you look at this game from a singular perspective, looking at the rest of the team, Oren, the next guy I want to bring up is someone who played fantastic in this game, and we haven't given a lot of love to the bench this season. I think deservedly so. They have not been consistent, right, this season. Chris Boucher played absolutely out of his mind in this game. 18 points and 11 rebounds in 29 minutes. Nick Nurse gave him every opportunity to shine in this game. Rarely ever, Aiden, do you see a Raptors bench player with 29 minutes played off the bench, which was fantastic to see. Again, it would have been nicer to see Pascal and Scotty and some of these guys not reach that 40-minute mark kind of range, but I mean, I guess that's just Nick Nurse, I guess. Like, there's no Nick Nurse is really trying to win games. I guess that's just how it goes, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see somebody like Boucher has been really the only consistent bench guy all year. That Thad played okay, but he had a surprising number of turnovers and fouls this game. But yeah, Boucher played probably his best game, 2 for 4 from 3, all over the boards. He is just endless hustle. He sprints from the bench to the sub-in station, whatever. He falls over. He sprints back on D while Gary's sitting on his ass whining. Like, I absolutely love Boucher's endless hustle. Like, he really has, over the course of the last 2 years, he's really understood his identity and embraced it and built on it. And like, Toronto desperately needs a guy like that, because I feel like we do get a little bit pretentious at times. Like, we do kind of get in our heads a bit too much and entitled a bit too much. And Boucher isn't that guy. That being said, I said, if we're buying at the deadline, Boucher's the guy I'm trading. And so, you know, a night like tonight is a good one if we're dangling him in front of contending teams, because I think there's a couple of places he could go and be as valuable, if not more so.
Yeah, definitely. There was a trade that just happened. I don't know if you got the notification. We'll talk. I guess we'll talk about trades a little bit after. This might be the not with the Raptors.
No, I know,
we are live, but there is a trade that Wojnarowski just announced, and we'll get into some of that later, because I know Raptors fans love talking about other teams. And you know, if you joined us at our event last night at Raptors Public, we held an event at Restaurant Rivoli, which was incredible, sold out. Awesome time. We had 3 different panels. I was on a panel with Oren, Esfandiar, and Lewis. With Samson was also there as well. He was hosting. Man, I just wanted to quickly put that in there. What an event. Shout out to everybody that came out. Incredible job. We will get into trades after. As soon as we get past this game, I promise you guys we will get into the trades, because I see people already talking about hypothetical Raptors trades and all the other good stuff. So we'll get into that. Chris Boucher, incredible. And for me, we usually do this at the end, Aiden, but for me, he's my Can-Am Tax.
Yeah, baby.
He is. And people are gonna go, well, Pascal Siakam. If you're new to this show, guys, right? And we say this all the time, the Can-Am Tax Award has almost become the non-Pascal Siakam Award, because he set an absolute record last season of winning almost every game, this award. And it is our Player of the Game award, the player that we were most impressed by at Raptors Republic. We're going to give it to Chris Boucher. 6 for 10, 18 points. He was a +8, 11 rebounds, 4 of them being offensive rebounds, 3 steals for Chris Boucher, and 3 blocks.
Wow.
A massive game from Chris Boucher. Got to give him his flowers for sure. You guys see it at the top right of the screen, canamtax.com. We tell you this all the time. Tax season is now upon us. You can call them at 416-243-2912 or visit them at canamtax.com for all of your tax needs, questions, concerns, any of that, especially if you are doing your taxes for the first time. All right, Aiden, getting back into the game, anybody else that you wanted to mention, good, bad, ugly, somewhere in between, anyone you wanted to highlight in this game?
I want to highlight Precious, because I'm on the, and I can't avoid trades, I'm sorry, but I'm on the don't trade OG Anunoby trade, and don't trade OG Anunoby team. And this current trade that just happened with Josh Hart to the Knicks is kind of suggesting OG's suitors are starting to disappear. But part of the reason why people are advocating for OG's trade is to give space for Precious. And they're saying, you know, like he can fill that wing spot, which I don't agree with, at least defensively. He's going to blossom into maybe potentially a greater player, blah, blah, blah. And Precious played fine. He was 4 for 6, 7 rebounds. He did have only 1 turnover, 4 fouls. But you can see, and maybe this is a testament to Pascal and Freddie too, like what we just talked about, not sharing the rock. But Precious really does disappear in games. And he unless he has really an open lane to the rim, he doesn't really have any creation capability yet, and he will disappear in games. And so he really is slotted as a 7th guy on a good team. Like at this, I think at this point, like don't get me wrong, I love Precious and he's got a lot of potential and at times shows it. But he's not there to be on a winning team starting 5 yet. And so I think like we're getting, like, for those who say, oh, we've been waiting for OG to fulfill his potential, like, let's move him, blah, blah, blah. The same can be said for Precious, and OG is much further along than Precious is. So I think, like, we're at risk of doing the exact same thing with Precious that we did with OG and potentially ending up with neither, right? We trade OG and Precious never meets his potential. We're suddenly out both. So I think, like, I love Precious. I thought he played fine tonight, but he really was kind of, you know, transparent on the floor tonight for the most part.
He was, yeah. One good thing I will mention about Precious is he finally, I don't know what kind of was going on. I don't know if it was a coaching thing or if it was just a player thing with Precious where he wasn't shooting the 3 these last 4 or 5 games at all. And then when he would, it seemed like he had no confidence to even attempt the shot. And he did hit a shot. He did hit a 3-point shot in this game. I was super happy for him. And he did celebrate on his way back down the court. So that's good to see from Precious. I've always felt like his mechanics, Aiden, his shot mechanics have always been favorable for him. Sometimes you see guys make shots in the league and you're like, I mean, it doesn't look great, but it's going in. With Precious, it looks pretty damn good for a guy his size. And it did go in tonight. So I want to quickly mention that for Precious. Great job for him. And I think, honestly, if you want those developmental reps, Aiden, we saw it at the back half of last season. He was hitting the 3 at an incredible rate. So this is not something I feel like should be taken out of his game. I feel like, if anything, he should be encouraged to stretch out the floor. And one thing that's great about Precious is that if he can hit that 3 and he's stretching out the floor, he's also pretty good at coming downhill, right? He's like a one-move type player, right? Like you said, he's not a super creative offensive player, but if you got a 7-footer on you, Precious, you're going to take him to the rim and you might, finish right above him. You might blow by him. Precious moves like a 6'6" guard, right? This is a super, super athletic kid. So I'm excited. I'm excited for his future.
He's already a better finisher than OG. That hanging in the air, like, finish over 2 Spurs was like super impressive. And you can see him starting to read the speed and the spacing of the floor in the half court almost better than OG too, who still really struggles. But it's like in and out and just inconsistent. So the development is there, no question. So is the progression. I think we're leaning a little bit too heavily on him as of right now. And if we're trying to contend, I think that's problematic. But if we're trying to rebuild, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, I think it will help him if, and this is sad to say, but I think all Raptors fans have kind of came to this conclusion as well, that one guy needs to go. You can argue all day long about who that person is on the trade deadline. Some people think it's Fred. Some people think it's Gary. Some people think it's OG. A funny story, Aiden. S at our Raptors Republic event last night, when he was on the panel with me, I think Lewis asked him the question, which player would you want to see leave for the trade deadline? For whatever reason, right? You have your own reasons. And he said OG Anunoby. And there was a massive gasp in the crowd when he said OG Anunoby. And I laughed because I was like, this is exactly what I was expecting. I mean, a part of me does agree with him because, again, the value you're going to get from OG hypothetically is incredible, right? You're going to get a crazy amount of value. There's been like reported 3 first-round picks. Teams are already offering 2 first-round picks for OG, from what I'm hearing from most Wojnarowski, some of the most trusted NBA sources. So we'll see. I guess we'll see. I think we've all came to the conclusion that one has to go, and I think that's going to help the rest of the team kind of find their reps within this system that Nick Nurse employs. Anything else you want to mention from the game? I don't think this is a game that we can go like a super deep dive. I feel like we should now move on to what the crowd wants. The crowd, I mean, initially they were talking play-in, right? Which is funny enough because the Raptors seem so far away from the playoff picture, but now they are right there. I believe now they are a 10th seed, tied with Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. It could be above Indiana. But yeah, let's get into some trades. So the trade I was alluding to, Aiden did mention it, that happened during this live podcast was Josh Hart, who was a former Portland Trailblazer, Aiden, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He was traded to the New York Knicks. Josh Hart's a really good basketball player. Yeah, for in exchange for Cam Reddish. I didn't see the full details, Aiden. I don't know if there's
Reddish
picks or
and a first round.
Okay, so Cam Reddish and a first round pick to Portland, and then they're sending Josh Hart back. And I think that makes the Knicks a better team. Josh Hart is, for me, Aiden, is one of those. He's such a malleable, moldable player. You can just throw him on any winning team, and I feel like he'll just make them better. A guy who plays really hard defensively, can shoot the three, can create a little bit offensively. So, I mean, I feel like that's a good trade for the Knicks. And a lot of NBA fans are still very high on Cam Reddish. I've kind of fizzled on him a little bit, but hey, first round pick, you get out of that as well. So.
So the picture I'm showing for podcast listeners is like the Blazers huddled around a phone, realizing that Hart's been traded. So it came out of nowhere. And then the next picture is Dame embracing Hart out of disbelief, which is interesting because you'd think you'd be running these trades through Dame. And so he was definitely caught off guard. I think that's a cool human side of it, right? Like how shocking it is and disruptive it can be for these guys. As far as the trade goes, Hart's been pretty solid this year. Rebounder, passer. He hasn't been shooting well. A solid defender. He's definitely a Tom Thibodeau kind of player, just like a grinder, dutiful, low usage rate guy. The Knicks, the implications here are twofold for the Raptors. One, it means the Knicks are probably out on OG because Hart's kind of like in the OG realm, although you could definitely play with both. But now that they've traded a first and Reddish, it's like maybe this is who they've settled on. That being said, Portland is now accruing assets, right? Now they have a first. They had fewer firsts to play with before. And they have Reddish, like you said, who is sought after by certain teams. Some are out on him, some aren't.
Don't forget, Aiden. Josh Hart also, him leaving Portland also opens up room for their rookie, right? Sharp.
That's right.
So that's what I'm thinking about as well.
Yeah, but I think Portland's still looking to win as far as like the reporting has been around them. So I would be surprised if this is just where they settle. So interesting. And one Raptor suitor disappears, but perhaps another one who was once upon a time seeking OG in the offseason now has more space to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see. It does seem like, from the surface level, it does seem like the Knicks are out on the OG Anunoby sweepstakes. They have acquired their swingman in Josh Hart. The hype. I mean, the 3-and-D kind of typical player you would want for the Knicks. I mean, again, like you said, he's not shooting the ball incredibly well, but he's not a horrible 3-point shooter. As far as I know, the guy shoots in the mid 30% range. But yeah, I mean, that's just your typical, I think, trade deadline day or pre-trade deadline day trade. Another trade that did happen tonight that I think had kind of left the entire NBA community kind of just shocked us for a bit, but didn't really at the same time, was the 3-team trade between the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Utah Jazz, and the LA Lakers. So the Lakers sent Russell Westbrook and a bunch of picks, or one pick, 2 picks?
Just one.
A single pick. Okay, so this is odd to me. So they sent Russell Westbrook and a single pick to the Utah Jazz. Minnesota sends D'Angelo Russell to the Lakers. And then the Jazz send Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley to the Lakers and send Mike Conley to the Timberwolves. So First of
And
all,
Nikhil Alexander Walker
as well, he goes to Minnesota as well, right? First of all, how do I say this, Aiden? How did Rob Pelinka pull this off?
I have
How did he
no
get rid
friggin'
of?
clue, dude.
How did he get rid of Russell Westbrook? Right, and again, Russell Westbrook's one of the leaders, if not the leader, for Sixth Man of the Year. I'm not talking about a guy like that's struggling this season. He's done fairly well considering the circumstances in LA. But he got rid of Russell Westbrook. It seemed like the Lakers have been trying to get rid of him for a year now. You get back D'Angelo Russell, who's still a very good guard in this league, right? You get back two rotation players, very, very good rotation players, in Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt, who, I mean, they're great. And Jared Vanderbilt, for me, isn't even at his peak yet. Like, we're talking about still a very young player, very, very good defensively, can do so much things. A connective passer, can stretch it out sometimes. Malik Beasley is just, I mean, that guy can put up 20 in any game. Just a very good scorer for Utah. So I'm not more shocked as to why Utah kind of pulled it off, because I feel like they're just trying to create room. They have a very, very deep roster that a lot of NBA fans don't give them credit for. From what I'm hearing as well, Aiden, they are planning to buy out Russell Westbrook. They're not planning to keep him. I don't know if that's a thing. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, Lakers get three very good players. Minnesota gets rid of kind of like one of their higher usage guys in D'Angelo Russell, brings a kind of a lower usage, maybe a little more high IQ guy in Mike Conley. Veteran leader, yeah, which I think Minnesota definitely needs, especially after, I mean, they got rid of Pat Bev, and a lot of people didn't give him credit, but I feel like he was that leader for them last season, for the Timberwolves. So I think it was a good trade for Minnesota, right? Utah, I don't know. I mean, they're in that OKC range, Aiden, where they want 40 first-round picks. I mean, I read somewhere that they have, I think, 15 of them for the next 8 years or something.
That's what confuses me. And I think this is a good example of that fans or like Twitter experts, whatever the hell you want to call them, think they understand the league and the value of players. And then you see trades like this and maybe not. Or like we don't understand all of the workings that are happening underneath, right? Because from my perspective, I thought Conley, Beasley, and Vanderbilt were each individually worth a first-round
pick, yeah, same.
And then I thought Westbrook would cost at least one first-round pick just to get off of. So the math certainly doesn't add up from Utah side, and we think of Danny Ainge as this wizard. So like, is it that he, like, I don't know, he wasn't getting what he wanted from Beasley, or like offers coming in for Beasley and Vanderbilt weren't what we thought they were? I'm not sure.
I think Aiden, the Utah Jazz have come to a realization. If you remember, Aiden, they started off the season incredibly hot. Like they were, I think, a top 3 or top 4 seed in the West. Right now, they sit at 10th in the West. I think they have 26 wins and 27 losses. And they have not had, I mean, their last 20 games has not looked pretty for the Utah Jazz. It seems like they're kind of just falling back down to earth, where most people believed initially that they would be. They have a very, very young roster, one of the youngest rosters in the league. They have some really good pieces. Lauri Markkanen, all-star. Walker Kessler. A lot of people don't have no clue who he is. 100%. He's been incredible for the Utah Jazz. But it seems like at this point, Danny Ainge is just at the point where he's like, you know what? We're not a very good team relative to the rest of the West. We sit 10th. Cap relief and picks. I mean, it just is what it is. They're just going to keep building and building until I think they can just pull off one of those heist trades where you can just bring in a star of some sort, pair him with Lauri maybe. We'll see. I mean,
I just seems to be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I do too. Like you said, I thought Malik Beasley single-handedly was worth a first-round pick. And so was Vanderbilt. Like Vanderbilt's a very, very good basketball player. So, I mean, one and Westbrook did it. And it really seems like if they buy out Westbrook, it's just going to be a first-round pick for both those players. So,
odd. And implications for Raptors are Minnesota's out of the picture now for a point guard, presuming they want to sit on Conley. And then the Lakers are, they still have that 2029 pick. Is that enough to grab Gary? Maybe. I don't know. But it looks like that the Lakers have kind of settled in on where they want to be too. So The other thing about this, like not as much value as I thought for the Utah Jazz, is maybe this quote unquote sellers market isn't exactly what we thought, right? Like the logic says that there's a lot of teams that are contending for playoff spots. There are a few teams that aren't, therefore it's a seller's market. But maybe, all of these teams don't actually want to put all their chips in just because they're contending, right? Like they're willing to upgrade if the price is right, just kind of like the Raptors have been in the past, but they're not willing to overpay for a guy like OG, for example. So it could be tomorrow that things actually fizzle out because the sellers, quote unquote, like the Raptors, are asking way too much and no one's willing to bite. So that's kind of an interesting observation from this trade.
Yeah, and then in terms of Raptors news, well, we got the 2 trades out of the way. I'm constantly checking my phone, by the way, and I know it's probably not the best thing to do when we're live, but it's one of those things where, this is pretty cool. So in that Josh Hart deal, apparently former Raptor Svi Mikhailuk is also headed to Portland in that same deal.
Super cool.
Nice. Raptors fans are definitely aware of that legend. So yeah, those are the 2 trades. The Raptors have been linked pretty heavily, I want to say, in the last couple of days to, who else? Jakob Poeltl. We saw a report, I believe it was from Mark Stein on ESPN, where the Spurs may just be interested in Raptors sophomore Delano Banton. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Tomorrow the trade deadline, I believe, is at 4 p.m., right? We're going to be live here on Wrap Up.
3 p.m.
Is it 3 p.m.? We're going to be live here on Wrap Up between, I believe, 2 to 4 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. We're going to be going through it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be myself, Aiden, Oren, Keon's going to be here. We're going to have some special guests all over from Raptors Republic, some of our writers, some of our content creators. It's going to be fun. I personally can't wait. It's almost like, I don't want to say it's like Christmas, Aiden.
It's close.
But we've been waiting for this day for a very long time, right? So I believe, Aiden, I think that's going to do it. I don't want to get into trades too much when it comes to the Raptors because we're going to be talking about them for almost 2 hours tomorrow. Yeah. So
we don't want to overkill ourselves.
Exactly. I think we'll end it there. Before you guys leave us tonight, we need you to subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube as well as our podcast channel, The Rapcast. This was the Wrap Up, your official Raptors Republic live post-game show. Tonight, your Raptors came away with a win versus the San Antonio Spurs, 112-98, bringing the Raptors record 4 games below 500 to 26 wins and 30 losses on the NBA season. That was it for myself. Sahal Abdi. I was here with Aiden Moss tonight, our co-host, and we'll see you all Friday night versus guess who? The new look Utah Jazz, who currently sit, like I said, as the 10th seed in the West, 27 wins, 28 losses on the season. We loved spending time with all of you guys here. Again, I want to shout out all of the Raptors fans that attended our event last night in Toronto at the Rivoli. That was so much fun. We had so many special guests. Blake Murphy was there. We had Sean Woodley was there. William Liu was there. Alex Wong. There's so many people were there. It was fun. Had so much fun. Aiden.
Also, let me just jump in.
Go ahead.
A couple things on RaptorsRepublic.com. We had our trade roundtable today, so you can go read that. It's free, no paywall. We're also having guests on tomorrow's show, so stay tuned for that. Other Raptor Republicans. And I'm on the radio tomorrow in Hamilton, 900 CHML at 8:30 a.m. So you can listen.
That's what I'm talking about.
Which is also 5:30 a.m. Victoria time. So can't wait.
I love it. I guess that's a pretty good segue into saying that tomorrow, I haven't shared this with anyone just yet, but tomorrow I will be on Donovan Bennett's show on Sportsnet at 11 a.m. I believe he's doing a live kind of trade deadline thing for an hour. I will be there. It's really cool because for the first time I will be I've been on Sportsnet radio before, but I will be in studio, which is very different.
What are you going to wear?
That's really cool. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to wear.
Let's do a fashion show right now. We'll do it live.
I have no idea what I'm going to wear, but I'm excited. The show is called Going Deep. It's going to be live at 11 a.m. It's going to be so much fun. I'm excited. I got to wake up super early tomorrow. head downtown. I'm all the way up north, so it's going to be a drive for me. But I am excited. Trade deadline is going to be a fun day. And then I get to come home and spend it with the Raptors Republic family. Who else?
Hell yeah.
So that should be fun. We appreciate all of you guys joining us one more time. Thank you for coming out last night. Thank you for coming out tonight. We will see you all Friday night versus the Utah Jazz. And just before that, we'll see you for the trade deadline show tomorrow. We cannot wait. Take care.